I'm Melissa Stevens. You're joining me here today on the Encaustic Edge. Today's show is called Seeing Double. We're going to talk about carbon paper and how to make your own carbon paper. You don't have to spend a lot of money to add elements that are interesting to your paintings. Carbon paper doesn't cost a lot, and generally you can buy it in many sheets. They come in packets of 20 upwards to 100, 200 at a time. They also come in rolls. First, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the different kinds of carbon paper there are, and then we're going to work into creating your own. So there are two different kinds of carbon paper here. This one is a waxy transfer paper, and I really like it. You can see this one's been used lots of times before. I'm not sure who was playing tic-tac-toe on it, but at any rate, the waxy one, the reason I like it is because the color is very dark and it comes off very dark onto your surface area. Another reason I like it is because I can rub my hand on it and my hands don't come off dirty. That tells me that when I lay it down onto my substrate, that it's not going to mark it up needlessly. The other kind that I have here is a carbon transfer paper, and this is basically graphite that is on the surface of the paper, and when I rub my hand across it, it comes right off. So I like this one for a lot of reasons as well, but the only reason I don't like it is when I flip it over onto my substrate. I'm left-handed, so I tend to kind of drag my hand when I write. I have to be really careful not to put a lot of pressure on the paper itself, or that dust is going to come off onto my painting. So I'll just show you how these lines look on a painting. Let me get this set for you so you can see better. Had to move my camera away. It does not like the heat of my plate, and I've noticed that it does this little heart throbbing thing. So thanks for joining me today. If you want to, go ahead and pipe in the comment section and let me know where you're watching from. So this is the waxy carbon paper, the waxy transfer paper, and you can write on the back side of it with a pencil or a pen or any kind of like wooden device. I wouldn't use anything too pointy. I wouldn't use like a needle point, any of your dental tools or anything like that that's going to carve right through it. But then you could also use an embossing tool, which has the little balls at the end. We'll go ahead and use that. But you can see I'm going to touch it all over so you can see that it's not going to leave anything behind other than the lines that I draw. And I don't have to add very much pressure for it to create these really nice, straight, solid lines that don't break up at all. And they're going to fuse just like that as well. They're not going to shift much unless I overheat. And they're just going to stay in there. So if I wanted to do a nice outline, or I use this a lot for if I'm adding like a telephone line or something for my birds to sit on, that works great. But you can see where I rubbed my hands across there and it didn't leave any marks at all. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the graphite paper, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rub so you can see if it got dirty or not. And I'm going to do the lines there. Now you can see all of my fingerprints, and you can see where I drew the lines, how it got dirty. I'm just going to hold this up a little bit so you can see a little better. So that's that transfer that I'm talking about. And I could potentially maybe use a wet paper towel or something to, well, if I wipe it, it's just going to smear. But if it were, let me just get a little dab of water on there and see if that helps. Not really. So I'm going to have to eventually scrape that dirt off of there. It doesn't want to come off very easily. So you can see it smears and stuff like that. So when I go to fuse it, again, it's not going to move much at all. It just wants to sit in there. And then once that cooled, then I would go in and I would scrape off that excess dirtiness. So the paper that we're going to make today is going to be really similar to this graphite paper in the sense that if we put a lot of fingerprints on there, they'll probably show up. But what's going to be fun about what we're doing today is we'll be able to do it in a lot of different colors, and it gives you a lot of really cool options, which is pretty awesome. So the other really nice thing about this is that you can use really cheap materials. This is just newsprint paper, and I find that the cheaper, thinner paper, you could use lined paper, the kind that you put in a 3-ring binder. Any of those cheaper, thin papers work much better than even a high quality printing paper. I find that those just don't work as well for the transfer, because what we're going to put onto the paper, we just want it to fall off onto our painting. So the first thing that we're going to start with is just an ordinary pencil. So it's the same idea as the graphite transfer paper itself. We're just basically doing it ourselves. We're going to draw a little bit of the pencil onto the newsprint, and then we can actually use the pencil as our transfer device. Oops, sticking to my table because we've got wax on my table. I'm going to just kind of pay note. If you hold your paper up to the light, and you can see, I can see when I hold it up to the light where the pencil is on there, and then set it down so that you know where it is. And you can even see it's a little darker than the rest of the back side of the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a squiggly line. And again, not having to push down too hard, just like I'm drawing. And I get, just like I did with my regular graphite paper, but not, I'm going to go ahead and smush my hand across it. I'm not getting that messy dirtiness like I did with the stuff that I bought at the store. So that's really nice. And then when I fuse just the pencil markings, again, all of these are just going to want to kind of stay put. It might get a little lighter. Oops, I'm starting a fire. But you can see that it just wants to sit still. So again, just really fun way that you can add a gentle detail. The graphite's going to come across much lighter, like I said, than the waxy carbon paper. Another graphite version that you can go to is if you have one of the larger graphite pencils. I use these a lot on cool encaustic medium to write and do semic writing and things like that. But on these you can, I'm going to just put a piece of paper underneath. You can get a lot of really beautiful graphite, and it's very similar in color or in shade or tonality as your pencil. It's the same kind of graphite, it's just in a bigger, thicker form. So it's a lot easier to get that broader surface area to transfer from. And we'll go ahead and we're going to do some jiggly lines right next to where we did the pencil and see if it makes a different. I'm going to make sure I'm using the bigger ball. So again, I'm just making some squiggly lines. So you can see it made a lot clearer transfer than just the pencil markings did. And I really just love the formation, and you can see where it came off of the paper right here. On the pencil marking, you can see it too, but it's much, much lighter. So we're going to see a lot more of that as we move through our material. So again, I'm going to go ahead and fuse that very lightly. We get a little bit of a spread on that, but very, very minimal. And probably once it cools, I can just clean that up with either a straight edge razor or one of my carving tools, like, oops, sorry, or like one of these, right? So this one's kind of dirty. Sorry about that. So there's the pencil and the graphite, I don't know, crayon, graphite, what do they call it? Yeah, they call it a graphite crayon. Ooh, good guess. So we're going to continue on the black and white mode, and I'm sure many of you have drawn with charcoal in the past and might have some sitting around that maybe you haven't used in a while and you're looking at it going, what do I do with this now? So you can use your charcoal. I have a really big chunk right here. You can also use the light charcoal. This is that really lightweight stuff. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit here of the light charcoal. You want to make sure that when you're doing charcoal or chalk pastels that you do them far away from your paint, because all those little granules can end up in your paint. You don't want to do that. So this is the softer one with some of the oils mixed in. So this is straight charcoal, and this is like more of a chalk pastel, if you will, charcoal. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the excess dust way over here, away from my paint. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at where I have my charcoal on there. You can see it through the paper. It's right here and right here. And I'm going to be careful though, because now I'm dealing with something that's much looser and much chalkier. So if I put my finger on there, I'm going to go ahead and put my finger on both of them, and we'll see what that transfer looks like. And I'm just going to go ahead and do lines here like this so that you can see the difference in the tonality. So you can see right off the bat, boom, my fingerprints are right there. The straight off charcoal, the lighter charcoal that's in these sticks, that had a lot more, it didn't have the dusting look like the formed charcoal did, but it like is all super gray, and that would require a bit of cleaning. So let's go ahead and fuse. I'll try blowing it. See if we can get rid of some. I was able to get rid of some of the little speckles of the pressed charcoal, but that is just a mess. And if that was a look that I was going for, I could definitely use something like that and really mess it up a lot, and that could be fun. But in general, it's not something I would personally be looking to do. So again, those lines that I created, they just want to stay put. So these are just great options. So this was the waxy, and just looking at it and comparing it to the lines that I'm getting, it almost has a bluish tinge to it. It's a different, got the program here. So you can even see it almost looks like it has, like it's a blue-black by comparison. And you can see where I rubbed it away from itself and it kind of smeared. So that's really interesting. I've never noticed that before. So those are really good options for just black and white. If you're looking to make black lines, ways that you can transfer your lines. Say you want to do some color. That's very possible as well. Excuse me. So I've got a bunch of old chalk pastels. These are pretty dirty. I'm going to clean them up a little bit before we go with it. But this is a little more pressed than this one is. We'll try both kinds and see the results we can get with that. But it should be exactly the same as the black charcoal. I'm going to go ahead and you see that I'm not smearing it with my finger or using a rolled paper thing to smooth out the color. I'm just leaving it as it is, blowing off the excess away from my paint. We'll do a side by side here. Let me kind of clean that off. It's kind of dirty. Been sitting in my bin, hasn't been used for a while. Maybe we'll use the top. That'll be better. So these are two really beautiful, bright colors we can add on to our drawing. Again, really messy. So these would also be leaving fingerprints if I put my finger across them. Now maybe that would be something that I would be looking to do. if I did not have access to pan pastels come in a round container, and you can apply them with a makeup applicator or a eyeshadow applicator, or you can use paper towel, you can use a sponge, you can use all sorts of things to do that. But if I didn't have pan pastels, I could potentially use it this way by spreading it out on my paper. Let's just give it a little whirl. Because the pastels don't really want to draw directly onto the paint, onto the encaustic paint, but there I just did a little smear of it right there, and it came right off onto the wax, and now it wants to stay put until I fuse it to make it permanent. So that's kind of cool. And then I could probably go through it again and create lines. So let's try that. These are side by side. I'm just going to go ahead and put them right there side by side. And I'm going to draw through what I just did. And then draw through the new. Okay, so I'm going to blow the excess away. So the pressed charcoal made much cleaner lines than it's still pressed, but it's a lot looser kind of charcoal, and or pastel, get my terminology straight. But you can see my fingerprints. I wasn't very careful, and you can see when I did the line that the line actually opens up and splits into these particles. So that could be really cool too with, if you're creating different design that it's a little looser. And then also I can see that the line that I made in the little smudge that I created first, that is clear in there too. Let's see if it shows up better after I fuse it, or if it just disappears. So there, I fused it. You can actually see that line more clearly now than you could before. So that's kind of cool. I like that. I really like, I'm kind of more of a clean line gal myself, but so I would probably go in there later and clear those up. But like I said, it all depends on what you're looking for. And some of the sediment that's left behind can create really cool patterns as well. So I'm trying to bring that closer to you without it being blurry. You can see that. So then the last portion that I have is you can do this. Oops, I think here I grabbed the right one. You can also do the color using oil pastel. So the oil pastel would almost be akin to the waxy carbon paper. It's not going to leave that residue behind, but what it's going to do is it's going to act differently underneath the heat. When you are doing, you can draw with oil pastel directly onto your painting. So maybe a transfer isn't what you're looking for, but there I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do some lines through transfer, and we're just going to see if they are going to be fusing differently. I did this a little earlier, and when I fused the transfer, they got really, really blurry, but that's what oil pastel generally wants to do on the encaustic paint. It wants to spread out and get nice and mixed up with the paints. And so let's go ahead and do the lines really close to what we just did. So there's our transfer. They are a little thinner. They're not as wide as just my hand-drawn lines on there. Let's go ahead and fuse them and see if they fuse differently. So you see what I mean? They want to spread out right away. So my my drawn ones, where the lines were on top of the encaustic paint, those just spread out and almost made like a solid color rather than lines. Whereas the ones that I transferred from the paper, those did spread out as well, but not so evenly as a layer. They're more embedded into the paint before fusing. So that works out really well if I'm trying to define an area. And so I used my embossing tool the whole time. I just wanted to show you that you can use a pen as well to do your lines. So here you can see where I did the lines on the other side where the oil pastel is. I'm going to go ahead and just use my pen. Because the charcoal is already fused in there, I can do anything I want over the top there. Okay, so let's go ahead and fuse those. So there, like, I just think it's super fun that you can create these lines in lots of different colors. I don't have to go to the store to buy anything special. I can just use it with tools I already have here in my studio. And these are not expensive oil pastels. These are pastels I've had since I was a little kid. I have no clue what the ingredients are, but they're just little Craypaw junior artist pastels, so they're not anything fancy, and just like I said, the cheapest paper that you can find, thin, and that will release those materials that you're putting down on there. And so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Suzanne, thank you for your comment. Yes, it is super cool that you can use just a regular pencil, right? So if you guys don't have any questions, that is my show for today. And I thank you for joining me. Go ahead and push the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. And I will be back here with the Fab 15 for the month of April. Check my calendar on my website at www.mascreations.com. And thanks again for coming. Have a great day.